let's talk about the human rights instruments to achieve accountability for environmental and human rights violations in Amazonia. The main objective of No Peace Without Justice Amazonia project is to achieve accountability for perpetrators who commit harmful actions in the Amazon basin. We take a broad view of the term accountability that includes both judicial and non-judicial options. This means considering not only criminal proceedings, but also alternative avenues of accountability such as corporate social responsibility mechanisms. Among the various options for achieving accountability at the international level, the mechanisms of the United Nations are the most well-known. The UN treaty bodies are a good option in this sense. These mechanisms ensure that states comply with the main UN human rights treaties that they have ratified, such as the Convention on Civil and Political Rights or the Conventions on the Rights of the Child. After joining a treaty, a state becomes bound to it and must respect it. The UN treaty bodies are charged with monitoring the behavior of states in relation to a given treaty. A useful instrument in this sense are reports on the human rights situation that states have to submit periodically. Such reports permit UN treaty bodies to assess states' compliance with the obligations of the treaties, as well as assess implementation of specific recommendations made by other states regarding said obligations. Civil society organizations can also have a role in this process by submitting parallel reports presenting their perspective on the human rights situation of the state under review. This permits to highlight shortcomings concerning the respect, for example, of environmental rights and climate policies under a human rights approach. In this way, treaty bodies can intervene by providing guidance and increasing scrutiny on state policies. Moreover, the UN treaty bodies offer the possibility of submitting individual complaints. This means that anyone claiming that his or her rights under the treaty in questions have been violated can submit individual communications to the UN. This mechanism has allowed to obtain significant openings to the link between environmental protection and various rights, such as the right to life and the right to integrity. The special procedures are another avenue for accountability at the UN level. They consist of independent human rights experts charged with reporting and advising on human rights from a thematic or country-specific perspective. They exercise a monitoring function by receiving information on allegations of human rights violations and sending communications to states asking for clarification or recommending measures to end specific human rights violations. The UN special procedures represent a valuable accountability avenue for the violations occurring in Amazonia, as they have often addressed cases concerning hazardous industrial activities damaging the environment and threatening vulnerable human groups. They have also considered cases of environmental and human rights defenders suffering threats, arbitrary detention, and killings. While their findings are not binding, they are an authoritative voice which shed light into hazardous activities and can contribute valuable information and input to other mechanisms, including binding ones. In 2007, the General Assembly of the United Nations adopted the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. The declaration is a non-binding tool, meaning that it contains political and moral commitments, but it does not create obligations for the states that ratify it. The Declaration is the most comprehensive international instrument on the rights of indigenous peoples, and it establishes a framework for their survival, dignity, and well-being by affirming their basic rights under the principle of self-determination. There are three bodies that can potentially serve as avenues of accountability within the framework of the Declaration. The first is the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, an advisory body that deals with indigenous issues related to economic and social development, culture, the environment, education, health, and human rights. The Forum promotes the full application of the Declaration and follows up to guarantee the respect of their rights recognized in the document. The second body is the Experts Mechanism on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, which exercises a monitoring function by verifying compliance with the Declaration and providing advice to member states regarding the development of domestic legislation and policies concerning the rights of Indigenous peoples. Thirdly, the Special Rapporteur on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples is charged with promoting good practices and making recommendations to implement international standards concerning the rights of Indigenous peoples and to prevent and remedy violation of their rights. Another fundamental treaty for the protection of the rights of Indigenous peoples is the International Labour Organization's ILO Convention number 169 on the rights of Indigenous and tribal peoples in independent countries. The Convention includes provisions regarding the administration of justice and Indigenous customary law, the rights to consultation and to participation, the rights over lands, territories and natural resources, labour and social rights, bilingual education, and transborder cooperation. The treaty is binding, meaning that when states ratify or adhere to this convention, they must comply with it. The ILO foresees a procedure under which a complaint may be filed against a member state for not complying with a ratified convention. This could represent an avenue of accountability for protecting the rights of Indigenous peoples in case of violations of the ILO Convention number 169. Under this procedure, if a complaint is declared admissible, a commission of inquiry may be established, meaning that an investigation ascertaining all the facts and making recommendations on measures to be taken will be carried out. With regards to criminal proceedings at the international level, the International Criminal Court is the world's first permanent criminal court that investigates and tries individuals charged with the crimes of genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. So far, the ICC has not dealt specifically with cases concerning environmental crimes, which, for now, it could only do if it can be characterized as genocide, crimes against humanity, or war crimes. However, a significant opportunity could be presented by the potential recognition of an international crime of ecocide. Keep following our mini-series to learn more about this. Lastly, various corporate social responsibility mechanisms may provide opportunities for accountability for environmental and Indigenous rights violations. Among these, we can mention the Compliance Advisor Ombudsman, an independent mechanism that addresses complaints presented by people affected by projects financed by the International Finance Corporation and the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency, especially if these have social or environmental effects. Similarly, the grievance mechanisms of the national contact points of the Organizations for Economic Cooperation and Development deal with alleged breach of the OECD guidelines by corporate actors. Lastly, the Independent Consultation and Investigation Mechanism deal with complaints from people who are impacted by projects supported by the Inter-American Development Bank. We now know that there are multiple international human rights instruments to pursue accountability for environmental and Indigenous rights violations. Awareness about the existence of these mechanisms is fundamental to allow people, including you, to ensure respect of their rights. Join us in this process by spreading the word about how to achieve justice. Check the other episodes of this mini-series to keep learning about Amazonia. Follow our social media to stay updated on this issue and join the fight for Amazonia.